Good evening, and thank you so much for joining me for tonight's Terroir Talk as part of our South America Wine Guide launch leading up to the new guide, which is coming out hopefully next month. And tonight we're talking with Christian Sepúlveda, who is one of my all-time favorite winemakers of Chile, part of the new generation, and making incredibly exciting wines with Bouchon family wines. So I'm just going to invite him in to join us straight from Maule, which I imagine is a lot less windy than it is in my shed in England. So hopefully the connection will work. Christian, hello, how are you?
Amanda, fine, and you?
Very well, thank you. How is everything in Maule? What's the weather like?
Today we are in a week with hot weather, with like a wave of high temperatures. Today the whole week will be around, 34, 33. So it's quite hot.
I'm positively jealous.
Well, I saw pictures not only in England but in Europe. You now you can ski. You're freezing, and here we are. Well, the two extremes. But in general, a common year. Always in summer we get this kind of heat wave. It depends. It could be December, January, or February, but it changed. But this is the week of the heat.
Okay. Well, I'm sure it's going to get cool down in time for harvest. So I'm really looking forward to today's session because for me, Maule is one of the. It's a powerhouse. It's a really important region for Chile, but I also think it's one that just doesn't get talked about enough in terms of some of the incredible wines and the very distinctive style that comes out of Maule. And I'm thrilled for you to be leading this talk because I think you're making waves with some of the wines that you're making with Bouchon. And I really want you to give us an overview of Maule first and kind of where it sits in Chile and why Maule became the biggest or most important wine region for Chile with the most vines.
Well, I think you're right. Even I think in the last 10 years, Maule started to talk about a little bit more. I think there's still a lot of things going on, but I think the main thing in terms of the people that know Chile, but Chile is a long tail. So you got Santiago, and then you got more or less 250 kilometers south. To talk about Maule. But in general, the DOs in Chile system, they're still not the best for me at the moment. So they are big territories, So Maule is the biggest in terms of quantity. So in Maule, in general, you're talking about more or less about 45% of the production of the wine, or the viticulture in general. So you get this kind of like the big volume that we make in Maule in general. But also there are like 2-3 sides for me. You got the volume in Chile in general. Also, you got all the history about the old vines, about the dry farming. There's also inside Maule, but not only Maule. You got also Itata and Bio, but it's inside the Maule. And you got so this kind of two things about more kind of industrial Maule and this kind of more historical Maule. But you got both. You can't say this only one or the other one. In Chile, diversity or there are many different things. But I think that Maule, also in Chile, it was mainly for me kind of the backyard, of the vineyards, in terms of the biggest volume, So nobody talks about in terms of quality about Maule. It was always near to Santiago. You got Maipo, you got in good climate, you got Casablanca. So you talk about only near to Santiago, and nobody talks in the last, in 20 years ago, talk about Maule in terms of quantity. But nobody was talking about the different routes that we got in Maule, about the history. There was so much things going on. But so in Maule, like in all Chile, you got this big portion of vine that you can divide. For me, like all Chile, you got the Andes part. There's not too much now in Maule. I would say the project of Laberinto of Tirado is one of the best one in altitude, but that is around 1,000 in altitude. We're not like Argentina that you got so many projects in altitude. And then you got the Central Valley that is the big portion of the wine. I would say not all, but it's more kind of the high production, more industrial wine in more fertile soil. But not only for wine, I would say all fruit, And then you got the part going more to the coastal range. Sorry?
It's the fruit basket of Chile as well.
Yeah, the fruit basket not only about wine. Because of that, I say because you got good quantities, it's kind of a not. I don't like to talk about good and bad, but it's more easy in terms of productions, in terms you got water. But then when you move from this, the people that come, they know a little bit about Chile. You got the Highway 5 that cross all Chile. Then you move going to the Pacific, and you got the Coastal Range that's called Cordillera La Costa. Then you start to move, and then it's like you transfer to another world, and you start to see another things. You start to see bush wine. You got more the influence about the granitic soil. You start to see not irrigate vines. You know, the people that come to Santiago and get the image of sure God, mainly of the vines in Chile we irrigate, and they are WGO system. You know, but in Maule, 50% of the vine we don't irrigate. So the landscape of the viticulture in terms of Maule, you start to change. So you start to see the bush wine, you start Pais vines, Carignan vines, Semillon vines in bush wine. So that's like another concept with this kind of more industrial Maule. So then you got all this kind of the secano interior, the interior dryland that we can talk about a lot. That, and in terms of wine and in terms of place, I think we should talk about more about this, because in Maule there's so many different things. For me, I think we got in the interior drylands in the Maule, you got more connection with Itata than maybe with the Central Valley in the same Maule.
Exactly.
So this diversity also makes that, I would say the last 10 years, maybe we also as a winery, but also in terms of communication, in terms of people, in terms of journalist attention, we are more in this kind of the secano interior in the, not only in the Maule, but this kind of viticulture that's so much different to the rest in Chile and also the rest of the world.
Exactly. I think your description of just moving to a different world is exactly how I would describe when you arrive to Maule and you start to see these old bush vines and this totally different style of viticulture to what you get in the rest of Chile, or further north, we should say. So you've mentioned secano interior a couple of times, which, can you explain what the secano interior DO is, and how it's separated or how it extends via Maule, Tata, Bio Bio?
Well, I think there's two things in the secano interior. One thing is the more, not talking about DO, first talking about the territory. In terms of territory, when you talk about the secano interior, you're mainly related to the coastal range that it looks like to the continent, because also you got the costero, you know, the one that's looking to the ocean. And it's more or less, in general, it's more or less about Curicó, more or less, that it will be like, I don't know, 200 from Santiago, and it goes to the coastal range until Bio Bio. So it's more or less, you can talk about 300 kilometers, you know, and that is in terms of the same kind of granitic soil, different degree of decomposition, okay? But if you talk to the only the DO, in Chile you can put in the label secano interior only from Maule, like I was talking about more or less, until Bio Bio, Jumbel, because then the coastal range goes down, and then you got more the influence of the Andes. So you start to talk more about volcanic soils. But only for two varieties, that is Pais and is Sanso.
And this is interesting to me because the Pais and Cinsault are still not permitted to be a regular wine label in Chile because they're not recognized as noble grapes. They have to only be bottled as secano interior. So why do you think Pais and Cinsault have kind of eschewed or kind of not respected in the history of Chilean wine and kind of relegated to this secano interior DO?
Well, too many answers for one question, but I think it's also, if we talk a little bit about the history of the viticulture in Chile, like first you got the Spanish influence 5 centuries ago with the Spanish, that will be mainly Pais, Listan Prieto with Muscat and other varieties, and then you got the big French influence, and you said the Pais is related mainly with bull wine, also in general, if you think there's so many hectares of Pais, now we got like 10,000 hectares. In the past, it was the first variety planted in the Reds in the 60s. But there was a single bottle with the name of Pais. So you need to start to think about where all that wine it was going. First, a lot of it consumed in the country, but a lot was blended with another varieties like Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. So I think this kind of in the DO system that we got in Chile, it was against made I think, but I think it's a little bit is more benefactor to the big companies to pay less prices and it's against about the small producers. So in that way, with no DO or with not not a fine wine, you pay less for the grape. And I think that is a little bit, I would say, a shame, a little bit bad for the history, and I think we should change it. I don't know. For me, it's great to get a label Secano Interior, but it's weird that you can put, I don't know, Carignan could be Secano Interior. It's more related to the place. So, I think we still got a lot to work there.
Absolutely. I think you've hit on some really interesting points, which I know we're going to talk about later in terms of great price, undervalued wines, and definitely diving into Pais. But before, we're going to taste through these wines and really explore some of these regions. So I think the first wine that we're going with is your Semillon Granito. Is that
right? This one. We're in the same page.
Perfect. And so with this, which is one of my favorite white wines in South America, so I'm thrilled to present, we're going to be talking about Costa, Maule Costa. So the important thing for everyone to remember about Chile is that we don't only split it north to south, we also look east to west, and the coastal, the entre cordilleras, the kind of middle bit, and then the Andes regions. So can you tell us a bit about these coastal regions of Maule, what the kind of lay of the land is like, and then we'll start talking about Granito.
Well, like you already said, like the DOs in Chile are so big, you really need to know where it's coming from. So in general, Maule is really well known, not for the whites, I would say mainly for the reds. Because in general, the people don't think there's kind of a more cool climate or a good climate for the whites, but it depends, like you said. If you're near to the coast, you got the Pacific influence that we got in Chile. So for the people, you got two options to cool down the temperature in Chile. If you're in the Central Valley, like entre cordilleras that you said, in general, you will get high temperature. You got two options. You go to the Andes to cool down the temperature, but you got the frost and all the things that we know, and you got to the Pacific Ocean. They are the two main things. So this state is in Maule. It's 30 kilometers from the Pacific Ocean, and last year, with the COVID, I got more time to read. I got more time also to check the temperatures, and also I was really surprised. One thing that you can see if your climate will be more cool, more warm, is the degree that you got more than 10 degrees. The summary of the hours. And I was looking, in a cool year like 18, by example, it was really similar, like a hot year in Lleida. That is a really cool climate, So I didn't knew that, I know it's cool, but I'm not every time like checking the temperature or get this kind of summary of the temperature of the degree. So there's one explanation, because in this state in particular, there's not so many in Maule, but in this state we got like this kind of cool climate. Also we had granitic soil. We got also one thing that in the case of Semillon, you're talking about vines that are near to 80 years old and grafted. So I think all these three things I would say makes this kind of key factor that you can get a wine, the same picture you're showing, kind of fresh, but at the same moment, if I can make a difference of the cool climate in Maule, if you can say, in general, to different regions of the world, this is a wine, even you got good acidity, it's a wine more of texture. Yeah. It's a wine talking about a little bit more about the soil. You got the freshness that you can see because of the climate influence. Here you're talking about, pH about 3.1, 3.15 for a Semillon. So the first thing that also this wine we start to make it in 2015. Semillon also got a little history like Pais, that it was really planted huge in the 60s. Now we are less than 800 acres. Yeah. To give you an idea, in Chile we got like 140,000 acres. I don't know, in the 60s was around 20,000 acres, and now we are talking about 800, because it's not Sauvignon Blanc, it's not Chardonnay, they're not the trendy varieties when you talk about fine wine. But Semillon, in Maule, with this kind of soil, and one thing that is really not only in Chile, the Semillon is blended with Sauvignon Blanc because of the lack of acidity. But when you see the Semillon more cool climate with this kind of soil, for me the granitic soil, besides the number, give you the sensation about the kind of juicy, freshness, texture, but at the same time you got tannins. And that is one thing that we really love with the team, to make whites with character, to make white with this kind of, if you put it blind, it could be, a red, and that thing is, we really enjoy it. And in Bouchon also, we got the same history, like I said, in Chile, that maybe we didn't look in the best way these kind of varieties in the case of the Pais or the Semillon. We leave it behind. We used to make the wine blended with Sauvignon Blanc, not taking so much attention to the wine. But then the wine showed itself. This project started in 2015 with a trial. I wasn't here. It was another winemaker called Felipe Ramirez, and they make a trial. One barrel to see what happened. And then when I arrived here to Bouchon, the wine was already bottled like a trial. When I arrived to Bouchon in 16, I tasted all the wine that were bottled. But I didn't know it was without a label. And drink it, the wine was, whoa, this could be from here. I called Felipe, I said, this is the best wine that you have ever made. It's really amazing. And time, we realized working a little bit better, in the viticulture area, paying more attention to the details, is one of the ones that we really enjoy, that we really feel we can show this kind of more cool climate of the Maule, but with this kind of granitic soil, wines with character. Not only here, we're not talking about the intensity of the nose, we're not talking about if we get a gold medal because of the intensity of like a Sauvignon Blanc. Here we're looking for structure, here we're looking the capability to the wines to age. That's not really common in Chile for the white. So I think Semillon is a little bit the history of what we were doing here in Bouchon. Like, we're not discovering nothing because all the wine that we're going to take that we've been always here, we're just paying a little bit of attention that we should for a long time. And that is the history about Maule, I think. Like this kind of good wine, but everybody was paying attention maybe to other places, and we would always have this treasure that we're just, not only us, there's a lot of people that is working, paying attention, and getting good results. The thing with Semillon, I would say mainly I see really great results in Maule. Also, it's a little bit, I would say, in Colchagua, and also there's a few great samples in Biobío. It's a variety that I think to Chile in general, for me, it's much more adapted because in general in Chile we got more temperatures, like in Europe,
Yeah.
So in general, Semillon can't handle more temperatures. I'm thinking about global warming and all the things. You're talking about another kind of white. So I would say the Semillon give us, like with the first trial, give us, here I am. We can make a really great wine. You can like it or not, but for me, even not with the T-shirt of Bouchon, but I think it's one of the great white wines in Chile. And we are really glad that it's a Semillon, not a Chardonnay or Sauvignon Blanc.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, but I think it's South America too, because in Argentina they also had a lot of Semillon. And I know that Julio Bouchon has been really instrumental in doing Semillon sessions and putting together Semillon producers from around Chile. And this was a vine that was massively planted all over Chile and Argentina. And you have some really incredible examples, especially with the old vines that have really kind of adapted well to these special places. So I want to talk a bit about granite, because obviously you've named this wine Granito, means granite, and I've got a little infographic that you sent me. So can you tell us a bit about the different types of granite that we have and how that impacts the character of the wine?
Yeah, I didn't want to get bored the people at the beginning, so I was waiting a little bit. So yeah, one thing that we really work really hard, like I told you, we're not discovering too many things, but we're just paying attention to what we got. And in general, I will say, when we talk about the second interior, you're talking about granite. But you're talking about granite, it's a big name. There's different kind of granite that are coming from different places. And I will say in the wines of Bouchon the last 5 years, when we launch a wine, it's not because maybe, I'm not sure in the people is drinking more Semillon, we hope. But in drinking it, it's because we find something special in our vinegar or with a producer. So that is the main thing of the wines. So in general, that is a study, I would say, that start, with the electroconductivity, looking for the different, if we got more clayless clay, with a geologist too, with different people working. And in Granito, in general, we find in the case of Batuco, that's the name of the state where the Semillon is coming from, we find that 3 different kind of granite, The first thing is where the granite is coming from. The first thing is like the granitic soil could be like the evolution or the weathering. It could be in the same place, or the mother rock, it was evolution because of temperatures, water, pressure, different things, but it gets fractured in the same place, okay? And also you can find that maybe the granitic soil was transferred because of gravity and also because of water. that is, I would say, the two main origins of the granite, you know, and with that you got different kind of more iron, less iron, different kinds too. And then you got the evolution of the granite. So you can find this kind of more rock, then kind of more sandy texture to the clay. So there's so many variables, you know, and I just summary, you know, there's much more. So we find that in the same state, in the same block of Semillon, in the Semillon that was planted in the 80s, first was blended with Sauvignon Blanc. So we start to pick only the Semillon, the first thing. And then with the Semillon, you know, all together we graft, you know, the plant were Sauvignon Blanc. Then we find that in the same block, at the beginning of the slope, we got this kind of granitic soil that's called in situ. So the weathering, it was in the same place. The granitic soil didn't move, you know, stayed there. Then we find another part that the granitic soil was moved, okay? And then we find a third part when all these two granitics, the in situ that we call that was weathering in the same place and the one that was moved, they were mixed, okay? And also, if there's a granitic soil that it was weathered, you got the decomposition in the same place and the other one was moved, it's different because you will find different layers. In general, the granitic soil that is called in situ, it was weathered in the same place, is much, I would say, much more homogeneous, you know. But in the other one that you got, you know, the in situ, and also you got then the other one that's transferred, you got like different layers of granitic soil in different degree of decomposition. So that made the only problem that you start to get more complicated, you know, because in the past you make the wine, you pick the whole block and you make a really good wine. But then when you start to find this fine tuning, this fine difference, I'm not sure it's good, better, but you start to make wine, I would say, precise for two things, because of the type of the soil, but also you're getting much more precise in the day of picking. Because in general, the wine is in situ with less decomposition, more kind of sandy texture, retains more water. Here we're talking about dry farming. And in the other one, that maybe it was with more evolution, more clay component, it retains more water. So the thing that we realized that in the past we picked all the block together. Now we're making Granito, the one that we're tasting. We're making another one that's called Block Series, another one that's called Skin. And we pick with difference. And we pick sometimes with 10 days, 2 weeks of different. And we used to pick all together. So I think that beside the influence of the soil, we're getting much more precise because of the day of picking. So in the past, we were picking something ripe with overripe. We don't know. We just blended. So I think these two things of the soil, to understand how you manage, and then the precision that you get in the day of picking, I think that the two main things that we see, you know, like one step more about the precision about the wines. You know, here when we try to make another wine or the evolution of the wine that we got, more if we ferment at 20, 22, 23, or the yeast, it's not the big thing, you know. But when you get precise in first in the state, what you got, and then if you start to work maybe different, the viticulture depends on the soil, we've seen that the change are amazing. So Granito, a little bit, we know that we got Granito, you know, it's not something weird in the second interior, but this work of this precision of the different kind of Granito, we feel that sometimes it's above the variety. It gives you a signature. Because of that, we got two Granito, the white one, the Semillon, and also we got a red blend. And because the Granito is bigger than the variety, we think that the variety don't give the signature. The signature is given by the soil. I think when you talk about soil, more when you drink the wine and you go more to the tannin structure, for me, this relationship between the soil and the wine, you feel it much more in the structure, the tannin structure. Because also in the kind of smell that you got and the intensity of the nose, it's more mineral, less mineral, there's a little bit also about the soil. But also you got climate, temperature, redox of the wine, this other thing. But the density of the wine, the DNA of the wine is connected, the soil for me, with the structure of the wine. So those two things make us that working harder in the soil, not good or better, but just get difference. That is the idea. And for us, the variety transmit the soil. It's not the principal character in the movie. The principal character, you know, the Brad Pitt of the movie is the soil.
Brad Pitt. I love that you've just compared granite to Brad Pitt. But and also I think all your work, you know, to be separating by 2 weeks difference some of these small plots within a relatively small vineyard is incredible, but it really shows in the wine. And I think you're right, this wine for me is all about the texture. It's got this grip, it's got this slightly kind of raciness, kind of pulsating underneath, but then it's also quite rich. It's got the richness of Semillon, which I absolutely love. And I think, you know, this is a real foodie wine. It's something that you can have with, you know, very substantial and serious meals, and it will hold its own. It's also very beautiful on the nose. You keep saying that it's not very aromatic, but it has got lovely kind of floral and notes and orchard fruits. And just a gorgeous wine. Congratulations. I'm so happy to be tasting it.
No, like I'm glad to taste it too. I don't drink it every day. We don't have so many bottles, so it's also great for me.
Out very quickly, doesn't it?
It's a shame, huh?
It is. You can still get it in England at the moment. There's a few bottles left, and it's about £35 here, and absolutely hands down, like worth the price in my opinion, as one of the kind of top white wines from Chile. We're going to move on to your Pais Salvaje.
Okay.
Talk about Pais, because Pais is such an important grape for Chile, and as you said, you know, it's the most planted, it's first planted, been in Chile since the 1500s, a really historic grape variety for the whole continent, and I think one that's really coming to the fore again, and people are talking about it again. And it's such a different style of wine for Chile compared to the international varieties that kind of made famous in recent years. So before we start talking about the region you come from, can you tell us a bit about the variety Pais? What is it like in the vineyard to work with? What is it like in the winery?
Well, in general, Pais, I was coming from in the morning for a state of a producer of Pais here in Huerta Maule. In general, Pais, in terms of viticulture, is one of this, I will say, I will talk about Pais in general, then I will go to the Salvaje, that's another history. Yeah? But in general, Pais, I think, is a variety that resists the heat in general, don't need so much water. You know, it resists, you know, dry farming, the main thing. Because of that, you think, you can find vines not only in Chile, but in North America, 200 years, 300 years. I saw one in Canary Island, almost 400 years. They are a variety that is really resistant to dry season, fungal disease. In general, it's like really grateful. You know, it's a variety, I don't know if the way in English is the same, but resilient, I think is the same word.
Resilience.
So, resilience, you know, every year you can get fire, you can get high temperatures, you can get, I don't know, whatever you can imagine, you know, earthquake, everything, and the vine will still be there making wine. So I think it's in the viticulture for sure. It's been, I will say, not maybe I would say the last year because of the price of the 1 kilo of grape is really low. It's still, so the people need so much work in the vineyard. For sure, when you want to improve the quality, you need to work much more better. But I don't know, to give you an example, in terms of when you control, you know, the fungal diseases, you put a little sulfur in the vines. I don't know, Carignan, for example, that we're going to take, you need 8 times, 9 times for the season. With Pais, with 1, you're ready. Wow. You know, in terms of, I don't know, insecticides and everything, it's much more easy to work in organic agriculture. You know, don't need too much. And even that, it will make wine. It will be in a good, I will say, quantity and quality. So in general, it's really vigorous wine when you see. In terms of vigorous, in general, the bunches, if you compare to a Cabernet Sauvignon, a bunch of Pais depends where, but I don't know, 300 grams compare a Cabernet Sauvignon 100 grams, more or less. Big bunch, not so much color in general, not concentrate. In general, the tannins are a little more. This is a big discussion. In general, the tannin for me is kind of a bit shorter. You need to be careful with that, but it's not bad quality tannins. You know, you need to know how to handle it in the vineyard. You need to be careful because of the dry farming of the maturity, how much yield you put to the vine, and also in the winery. There's a big discussion that the people say that Pais got rustic tannins, and I said if you manage Cabernet Sauvignon or I don't know, a Pinot Noir in the same wine, the people will manage the Pais, for sure, the 3 they will get rustic tannins. It's not because of the variety; it's because how you handle it. Yeah. You know. And you start to understand, but when you got a good Pais, you handle it a good way, you got a good maturity, the tannin is a little bit shorter, you got this kind of this sensation of that, you got sun, but it moves in your palate. It's not green, you know. So in general, the Pais going to the wine with not so much color. That is in general, like, I don't know. It's not a Carmener or a Syrah. In general, they're low in color. In general, that there's a wine, it's not with a high acidity. the pH of the Pais in a good place, it will be around 3.6, 3.7. It's difficult to find Pais like 3.4, like a Pinot Noir, I don't know, or even Cabernet Sauvignon from the same area got low pH. There's a higher pH variety, and the tannin, it will be beside how you treat it in oak, but 100% without barrel, nothing. They're not big, they're not kind of flesh, they're more bones, you know. And I would say this, I love it because it's kind of a pure wine, kind of honest wine, kind of a wine with not much makeup, with this kind of tannin that surely you need to know how to handle it, but they give this kind of sensation that for me, when you talk about Maule, you talk about Pais too, because this kind of juicy wines, you know, this kind of freshness, but with the structure at the same time. I think I will, well, not only me, but we love Pais because of that. But the resilience is amazing.
I think I tend to think of Pais as kind of it's kind of, for me, it's become the kind of Beaujolais of Chile. It's kind of become refreshing, really enjoyable style of wine, and the way you're making it very much today, especially Bouchon yourselves, you're making this kind of much more delicate style, and for me, be much more similar to Game, with fruity, floral, slightly earthy notes, but with a bit more tannic backbone to it. So I mean, I love this for a summer wine. It's one of my favorite things to drink, and I very regularly when I'm in South America. I'd like to talk a bit about the kind of special treatment of Pais Salvaje, and talk about the winemaking in a minute. But first of all, can we talk about the vines? Because Salvaje means wild, and these you've got quite an incredible story about this wine.
Well, we are really lucky, you know, a great picture. Yeah, but when you think about Pais, you will be mainly Bush wine, you know. But in general, not only Pais, all the vines. If you leave it, you know, when you see Bush wine, when you see this double Guillot or pergola system, it's a way that it makes the work for the human easier. You know, it's a way you prune to make it that way. But if you leave any vine, you know, free, they will trail in general. Okay. And so we were really lucky because in the state, imagine that in Bouchon state, that I'm now, that's called Mingre, in Secano Interior, there used to be, you know, like 100 hectares of Pais mainly with a little bit of Carignan, and was all taken off, you know, because of this French paradox, you know, take your Pais, put Cabernet Sauvignon or Carmener mixed with Merlot. Well, we realized later it was Carmener, but all this kind of change, you know. So we just get a block of all Pais in Bush wine. And there was a creek in the middle of the state. Okay, there was a creek, not so much now, but there used to flow a lot of water. In the picture you will see, and it's kind of a native forest there. You know, it's like 2 kilometers more or less of native forest. And this been for always. The main theory is like when the people prune this old Pais, they leave all the stick there, and then with the water, temperature, and everything, they leave it there. So in 2015, it was one of the Bouchon brothers called Juan at the moment, getting the idea, hey, maybe with this, when we were kids, with Julio too, the other brother, they were there, they take the fruit to eat, but nobody think about to make a wine, you know. It was like, seriously? You know, like, it would just hang it there, and you can see this in Bouchon, but all in the region, you can see the same. Not maybe in the same concentration, but it's common to see this kind of all wild vines. So, but we were lucky that we got these 2 kilometers of concentrate wild vines of Pais. So in 15, it started with like a trial of a red. I don't know, a few cases to see what happened, and also they make also a conquest because of the label. So they make the design in the university here in Chile, and they make to make the best label and everything. It was a big success. You know, the few hundred cases that we make sell, you know, in the first month, and then we start to take more attention. But
not just because of the label.
Sorry?
I said they didn't sell just because of the label. They sold because of the
No. Maybe a few, yeah, but then the red was also because of the wine, and also it was the style of the wine that you said it was so different to the rest that we were making in Bouchon, and also to Chile with not oak at the moment, still not oak, but more kind of bones, more fresh, more easy to drink. So imagine the first year when the people come here to pick, you know, with the leathers that you see, you're crazy, this could happen, you know. And then when we start to pick, in all the year we don't make nothing. We don't never prune this vine, we never put nothing, we just go once a year here. It's very funny. I work with Joseph Roca for the Canceler. The restaurant was like 2 years ago here, and he told me this is the best sample that the nature don't need us. I was like, yeah, you're right. Like it's true because we can make the wine. I think it's a good wine, but we don't make nothing. We just there's a few changes that we changed a little bit in the winemaking because maybe we understand. Also, we lose a little bit the feel in the wine because at the moment when we start to work with Pais, like all the people that got in the mindset, like Pais is rustic variety, be careful with the tannins, blah blah blah. It's like quite difficult to work it. We start to work in the 50% it was carbonic maceration, more kind of Beaujolais style that we were talking about, and 50% was distilled by hand, like that. That's called Saranda. Yeah, 15 was okay. 16 arrived was a good wine, but in 17 we want to make a change because with when as a winemaker, as a team, you got a responsibility. If you see this picture about these wild vines, hanging there, we realize that we are making a good wine, but I think in this case we need to make more than a good wine. We need to this picture that you already show, how you put it in the bottle. These wild vines, all this work. You got vines from near to the floor up to 4 meters. We were making a good wine, but we're not transmitting all this kind of soil, nature, all together. Because I really believe that we're not just picking the grape, there's an ecosystem, there. So in 17, we want to take out the carbonic maceration, but in 17, we got fires in Chile.
Okay.
So in general, and it was heavy fires in all Maule. So the one issue that you can get is the smoke thing, this kind of smell of ashes, and we think that maybe you got two options. You can make the wine and then make heavy filtration and everything to kind of above this kind of smell, but you kill the wine. And the other kind of how you can work is like to enhance another aromas. So with the carbonic you get another aromas, but the carbonic maceration get aromas that not proper from the variety, that from the carbonic for the technique. So in 17 we're still doing it. We got a little bit of fire in you feel ashes a little bit in the wine, but it's much more less if we didn't get the carbonic. So in 18, for me, it's the first year that we take out the carbonic maceration and we ferment whole bunch without carbonic, because the idea is we want to transmit everything that we got in the state. Because of that, we still use the whole bunch, but without carbonic. So in 18, and I think the jump of the wine from 17 to 18, I think it's one step more. In terms of the more complex in the nose, the tannin structure, we're not afraid about this kind of tannins. And in 19, that is the wine that we got in the glass, and I think you too.
Yep.
For me, it's the wine that we lose the fear. Why? Because in 18 we make it without carbonic, but the last part of the press, because when we rack, the wine and then you press, sometimes the press in 18 we didn't put the whole press in the wine, because with this kind of fear about the tannins, about it will be too hard. I said, okay, 19 we go all together. So we rack and we put all the press, it's a basket spread anyway. All the press, it will go to the wine. And I think 19 is another wine compared to the rest. I think it's a wine that is the year that we lose the fear. That I will summarize a little bit the history. And it's the evolution, we start to make Pais, even it's an old wine, but in the winemaking history, in general, in Chile, there's a big history about to make Pais, but in the more classical winemaking in terms of university, nobody was talking about Pais. All the people were talking about Cabernet Sauvignon, Carmen, and all these techniques. But Pais, we were afraid of that. And honestly, I didn't have so much experience. The team didn't have so much experience. The Cabernet that the Julio Bouchon father said, we used to make Cabernet Sauvignon, or used to make Pais like a Cabernet Sauvignon, and it was really bad,
Yeah.
And because of that, all the people got this image about with Pais you can make a fine wine. Yeah, not in that way, but you cultivate and you make fermentation in another wine, you can get a great result. So Pais Salvaje is a little bit the luck that we got these 2 kilometers about this creek with the wild vines, and also an interpretation of Pais, losing the fear, that 19 is a wine that I really enjoy.
And I really do. I love how you've described it as a fearless wine, because also it's not only breaking the paradigm and breaking the kind of prejudice of Pais. But also it's a totally different style of wine. It's 12% alcohol. It's juicy, but it's got that nice kind of grip and tension to it in the palate too. And I think, it's such a smashing style for Pais to kind of develop in that direction, and really refreshing for Chile. And also, Pais is one thing I wanted to mention is how important Pais is. Even though, as you've said, the hectares have been dropping, there's some 6,000 growers of Pais in Chile. So it's very much a social issue in terms of kind of, giving value to this variety, because it impacts so many livelihoods. Which is something I think we'll also touch on as we move to Carignan, because this has been, a really important issue in terms of kind of bringing up the region of Maule. So can you tell me a bit about how Bouchon is for me is one of the main estates in Maule that has their own vineyard and has been really kind of based there for a long time and working. And now you're working with growers around Maule as well. Can you tell me about your relationship with sourcing Carignan and how the kind of Carignan story has developed for Bouchon?
Well, I will go a little bit backwards. In Bouchon, I know until we said 2014, there's a little bit the change about Juan and Julio, the fourth generation, the Bouchon family start to make the change. They start to make I always say the same. They start to make the big question: who we are, where we're going, and the who we are. Yeah, we got a Bordeaux influence for sure. The Emile Bouchon, they're right here in the 19th century. Then Julio Bouchon father studied in Bordeaux for sure. Yeah, but it was really connected also to the wine that we're making in Maule. But Bouchon, the state, is in Maule. We got 3 states in Maule, and we were working on paying attention more to the Bordeaux influence than to where we are now. So the first thing. In 15 we start to make the first one with Pais. There was a blend that's called Canto Sur. There was Carmener, Carignan, and Pais. Okay, so that started a little bit to change a little bit the mindset. Okay, so we are in the Maule area. We're not making wine from Maule. In 2 things, you can make Bordeaux varieties in Maule for sure. We still got a lot of Bordeaux varieties, but we are giving another signature, not trying to copy Bordeaux, trying to copy Maule in terms of here is Bordeaux varieties in granitic and dry farming. So another thing. And then when we don't have interaction with the growers, with the varieties, so we start to source mainly Pais at the beginning. Then we start to work a little bit with the Carignan that we were talking about. Also, we source a little bit more south with the Sansonitata, and start this connection of Bouchon really close in the Maule with 3 states, but all like looking or thinking about the past, about the Bordeaux. And this is the history about Chile, not only about Bouchon. And then this kind of open to the region, to the producer, to the growers. Now we got, I don't know, more than 20 producers between all these different varieties. And I was really lucky because in this time when we start to open to the producer, it was the time that I arrived. So one of my work here was this connection about Bouchon to see maybe at the beginning as a big winery in the Maule with not so many connection with the small growers. Then now I think we got a great relationship with the small producer, trying to push up the prices. Not only, I think it's good, I think, to make a region or a DO strong, you need to have a lot of players, and also in terms of about the social and about in terms of the income to the producers. One thing with the Carignan and with the Pais, it's like in general you will not find so many like big producers that got these varieties. In general, mainly the Pais, a little bit the Carignan is in hand of small producer that they got 1 hectare, 2 hectare. So the income from the money they get is the money they got to live.
Yeah.
So if you go for 0.1 cents or euro, I don't know, a little bit less the kilo, and you go to 0.5, 0.6, in the case of Carignan you go to 1.5. You change the region. You change this kind of economic circle. So they got many so great things because first you get more money to live, to get a better way of living. At least they're not rich. And they're not driving Ferraris or nothing. They just got a decent life now. And then the other thing that we realize is like if you go to see the different states in general, you will see that there are people farming. They got 60. They are in their 60, 70, or a few in the 80s. And all the new generation is moving to the city, starting that thing because they saw their father or grandfather, like almost dying of being really poor because of this work, and they make it the work even if they didn't pay good money because they really want to take care about this wine, that they're really guardians about the old wines. But now with this change a little bit on the money, they see maybe it's a way to live. And I see this kind of the new generation, the people that got, I don't know, 30s, or the people that are going out to university, that stay to work in the farm, start to make wine again, because you need to remember that in the case of the Pais and Carignan too, these people farm and also make wine. Where the Pais tradition is also for 5 centuries too. Huh? So I would say this kind of relationship that is making we are glad to make it in Bouchon because we got the opportunity to get more volumes. So you got the small producer, medium volume producers, but all together we are trying to raise the prices, and we are getting a better quality of life to the region. So okay. Sorry.
No, carry on.
So I think one of the best samples is Carignan, is Vigno. I think the one that we're going to test now. Well, in the case of Bouchon, we start a little bit late in terms of Vigno. Vigno was formed in 2011 with a few producers. I don't know, Andres Sanchez, Felipe Garcia, also different people working together. For me, it was very interesting because in Chile, in general, maybe a little bit more now, we're not really great to make association. So in general, the people is working like, I'm working in my way, you're on the other one. We are not neighbors, you are competition. So Vigno is a little bit, no, we are bigger than that. If we want to put Chile in the map in terms of price, you need to show something a little bit more bigger. So, oh, sorry, I changed the bottle. No. We're on the same page.
Showing the label because this is incredible.
Yeah.
Vigno.
So
it's bigger. This is like the only kind of modern style appellation of Chile, really. And Vigno is more important than the kind of brand name or even the variety. I know it's backwards for everyone. But as you said, it's really kind of putting the appellation first, and actually the kind of ethos behind this is helping producers. I have a statistic which I think illustrates exactly what you're saying, and it's about the kind of price that Carignan went up from when Vigno started. It was just 10 US cents a kilo, and now it's on average about $1.50 a kilo. Is that about right?
Yeah, we buy the fruits for Vigno. We don't have all vines for Carignan. We pay like 1.5 US dollar for the kilo, and that grade 20 years ago, they were paying the same price as Pais. They were in general they were paying 0.1. So imagine from 0.1 to 1.5, and it's the value that you get. Like if you had vines of 70, 80 years ungrafted, in this case you can mechanize. You need to pick by hand. You need to make all the works about take the weed out. That is money too. But I think in the case of Carignan, it was, a great sample how you can create a brand, how you can put people together, and how beside the variety you can put a territory in a bottle and to travel. I think it's one of the great ambassadors now about Chile, because in general Chile is the wine that you look in the supermarket, in UK, in different parts, and it's not in the upper part of the supermarket. It is in the lower part because we are more connected with the volume. So it's difficult to the consumer to say, hey, in Chile we got different stuff too. If you want to get something different, not like an average Cabernet Sauvignon or Chardonnay, we got history, we got great places. Then you can choose if you prefer, I don't know, Chile, Italy, France, Argentina. It's up to you. But we got something, and to communicate something needs to be more than one producer, needs to be a region. And that, I think that Vigno for me summarized all the things. It's much more strong, and it will be put Chile in the map in terms of a quality producer in this kind of way. And also you got the other thing that we have our internal, I would say, society, our internal, the people that are the guardian of the variety, because if maybe Vigno didn't exist, maybe we didn't have 800 hectares of Carignan, maybe we just got 100. So I think we can talk a lot about how we save these old vines, but if the people doesn't receive the money they deserve for the work and for the wine, at the end of the day, they will still taking off, and I see every day with Pais.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think you've described it really beautifully in terms of Vigno really kind of bringing together this important, valuing these vines, valuing the growers that have looked after them for 80, 100 years in some cases, and producing really high quality wines. So I adore your Vigno. I think it's a very it's a quite an elegant style of the Carignan. You've kind of much bolder styles within Vigno too. So what I like about tasting Vigno wines together is what's important to say is has I think about 15 or 16 wineries involved at the moment, and they're all Carignan based, so 70% Carignan, over 30 years, but on average much higher, much older than that, and at least for release. So can you tell me a bit about the kind of variety? I realise we're running out of time, so just a snapshot of Carignan as a variety and what happens with these old vines and how the quality changes.
Well, the Carignan was in general was bring to Chile mainly is blend mainly with Pais, because Pais doesn't have too much color. Carignan got more color, but one of the key things is the acidity. So in general, Carignan, one of the, I would say in terms of viticulture, is much more sensitive to fungal disease like oidium. So that is a little bit a challenge to work it manually in more kind of organic way. That is the first thing. Also, it's a variety with a lot of vigor like Pais. So in general, we got new vines of Carignan when they're young. Like I would say, not only Carignan, but we see a Grenache, Monastery, these kind of Mediterranean varieties. When they're young, they have so much, so much strength. So they are big bunches. And with Carignan, you need time. Because of that, there's a lot at more than 30 years. Because then the vines start to get like a natural adaptation to the place. They start to get a little more stress, you can say it. So then you start to produce the best wine. So in general, the Carignan, we put at least 2 years also because in general, you think in red, you're talking about pH sometimes 2.9, 3, 3.1. Like a good friend that we got, it's called Derek, you need at least 2 winters, to drop a little bit acidity. But the main thing is for me, how you manage this high acidity with the tannins that Carignan also got, not rustic, but got big proportion of tannins. So how you manage this high acidity with the tannins. And also, when you got high acidity or lower pH, the sensation of a bitterness or the dry sensation, you feel it much more with high acidity. If you got a pH, a high pH, you will not feel it. But in the case you got the Carignan, the good acidity and the tannin structure. So a little bit the key how you see the difference in different producers of Vigno is how you handle when you pick. Here, at least in Bouchon, we pick it kind of early, 13.5, 14. Carignan, you can pick in 16, and the wine is still with fresh, So we go to pick fresh, 13.5. But then in the winemaking, we are really gentle, we try to make the Carignan kind of a Pinot Noir. Because otherwise, the acidity will be too high with the tannin. So then we leave it, we ferment open tank, slow fermentation, 80 years. We leave it there and we use food mainly, 2,500 liters and untoasted oak. And then we leave it 1 year more in the bottle. So I think the main thing is how you manage this kind of tannin structure with really low acidity, really high acidity, sorry. So that is, I think, the main goal. So in the past, the Carignan, one way to cover it, it was to pick really late and you put tons of new oak. So you make a wine that is kind of sweet, velvety, and also with good acidity. So it's a wine that works for a long time. Yeah. But I will see not only us, a lot of the Vigno, they're turning to this kind of more fresh, more elegant, more refined wine. So, and I really love this kind of wine because it's not a wine to drink next to the pool. It's a wine to eat. It's a wine, an elegant wine. For me, it's a great wine.
Absolutely, and this is 2016 that we're tasting, but you never know. You'd really think this is the youngest vintage you could possibly have because it's got that acidity and it's got that freshness, but it's also got this incredible balance to it. And I really, really recommend that everyone makes sure to try this wine because for me it's one of the highlights of kind of modern Chile. And again, as with all of your wines today, really embracing the old vines, really embracing, you know, what Chile has that kind of makes it unique, but with such a kind of fresh vision and interpretation. Christian, we're running out of time because I know if we carry on, this will not save, but I would be so keen to carry on with these conversations with you because you're an absolute treasure trove of knowledge. And I want to say thank you so much for joining me on this talk and sharing these wines. And best of luck with the 2021 vintage. I hope that
No.
I hope it's a good one.
No, thank you, and all the insight that you got. You've been many times here in South America. I'm sure you know Maule better than me, and it's great that more people like you and more people with this kind of the guide that you're making, and paying attention in this. You know, not paying just attention in the common Chile that all the people know, but in this the thing that happening on in Maule, Tata, Bio Bio, the kind of new Chile that is the old Chile in general. But so thank you for the time and all the focus in this kind of wines.
No, thank you. I'm hoping to get back soon and sit in the beautiful hot tub that you have in the hotel at the winery. So
Yeah,
I hope
there's a lot of people that are missing, huh? They're missing this hot tub.
All right. Cheers, Christian. Nice to see you.
So cheers.
Salud.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Salud. Cheers.